Welcome back to the world's best podcast.
Come on for who guys.
I'm your host, Top Cat, from the television series Top Cat.
What is with this
Everybody
new...
to the limit. Come on for who
What
guys.
is with this new
I
gimmick?
don't know, man. I like Top Cat. He's cool.
I'm not saying he's bad. It just came out of left field.
He's just
Do I have to
effortlessly
be
cool,
some...
and I wish I was as cool as Top Cat. No, you don't have to be anything.
Cartoon
In fact,
character too?
I'd rather you didn't try because it would be forced.
Right.
No, I'm just kidding. You can be a cartoon character if you want to. What do you feel?
I don't have any ideas.
Hong
Really,
Kong Phooey. It hasn't aged that well, but you can be Hong Kong Phooey if you want.
Underdog.
Underdog's a good one. As long as you're not the
I'll
reboot.
be Magilla
Yeah.
Gorilla.
Magilla Gorilla's pretty good. I would prefer Grape Ape personally, but to each their own.
I just like the
talking
boomerang
about?
song. Magilla Gorilla for sale. Magilla Gorilla for sale.
Yeah, it is
Really,
kind of
really, Dunk's just following in my footsteps of having a cartoon avatar. So
It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't conscious, but it was unconscious because Soy is my biggest idol and inspiration in this life.
damn.
Yeah. In the pyramid of this podcast, Soy's at the top, Dunk's in the middle, and I'm at the very bottom.
The editing slave boy is
Yeah.
at the bottom.
See, yeah, Soy throws down a stick of RAM for me. Get these episodes out quicker.
Did that
lad.
ship to you, by the way? Did you get that yet?
I haven't received it yet. I don't know.
Okay.
You're the one with all the shipping details.
Well, they haven't sent me any updates. I was just assuming.
Yeah, I haven't seen any packages.
Well, because they didn't update me when I got my copy of 3D Dot, so I mean their system is probably fucked right now either way. So
Yeah, well, I'll check later.
They're making too much money. The system can't handle it. Error, too much money. Dispensing gold coins like DuckTales in the vault. There's now a bunch of gold coins in the vault like DuckTales. Jeff Bezos just swimming around. In his gold coins.
Last week, I know we discussed the idea of this becoming a game dev podcast, and I have to say, The Killing of a Sacred Deer is probably one of the worst games I've ever played.
Oh yeah.
To be honest, I felt like ever since I started it, I didn't really have any effect on the narrative. I mean, it looked great. Like I've never seen a better depiction of Colin Farrell in a game before. To be honest,
I agree.
The graphics were really...
It is kind of like the Order 1886 a little bit, I guess.
Every time... It was weird. Every time I paused it, there wasn't even a pause menu. There wasn't a HUD. It was so weird.
Yeah. And, the dialogue was so odd. It was like...
Well, that's why I chose it, because I was trying to figure out if it was like a Dragon Slayer game. I was hoping you guys could help me figure it out, because every time I play it, I get the same exact sequence of events.
Yeah, I pressed every button on my keyboard at every second of the movie. I went through this frame by frame.
Alright, we can't actually keep this bit up for the whole episode, or we won't actually be able to talk about the movie. Unfortunately, I wish we could. I wish it was possible, but I don't think this one is doable.
We'll try next time.
Instead, we'll tangent into something else.
Yeah, sure.
How the Killing of a Sacred Deer is a 2017 movie directed by...
Come on, you can do it. You can...
Say his name.
Something or other.
Jesus,
I don't remember.
Pamphos? What the fuck was that, man?
Okay.
Yorgos Lanthimos.
Yorgos Lanthimos.
He's a baller-ass director of Dogtooth and The Favorite.
Yep. I've heard him a lot in top 10
movies.
movies of the year lists. He did Lobster.
He's one of the best
Favorite.
directors working, and one of the most original directors working.
And this is the first movie I saw by him, and I think I know his aesthetic. It's just
it's
really weird, stiff, polite people with classical music.
Well, what I would describe it as is very clinical.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this one especially, considering our main character is a surgeon.
Yeah, and this is a terrible movie to start with for his filmography, by the way. But I don't care. Suck it up. Deal with it.
So this guy, this dude's Steven. He's Irish, and he's also a surgeon. And he's got this weird kid he hangs out with. He smokes with him. I don't know what's up with him, but might be I think he's on the
wouldn't happen to
autism
remember
scale
his
or
name,
something. I don't know
do
why
you?
he hangs out with him. And then the kid's like, "Hey, you killed my dad in a surgery 10 years ago, so here's what's going to happen, pal."
You used the surgery ability to kill my father.
Okay.
The hospital, yeah.
That was a description of the plot.
Uh-huh.
A little bit. And,
whether or not it was good or not will be revealed at the end of the session. Sorry about that.
Yeah. And then the kid Martin, he's like,
there you go.
Your entire family is gonna slowly die until you.
Well, here's the thing, like,
kill one of them.
Martin only starts to say that after Steven tells him that, I might have fucked up, and he didn't actually die during the accident. He died.
It happens pretty far into the
surgery.
Movie. Like 40 minutes in, I think. But that's the main plot synopsis. That's what our character Steven's stuck in.
Wait, he tells Martin that he admits to Martin that he might have. When is that? I don't even remember that.
I don't know if that was it. Like,
my own interpretation was always that because he stops having his weird, vaguely pedophilic relationship with Martin, or at least slows it down to a crawl, and he just sort of gets agitated. Or like
I figured that happened at some point because then Martin's just like, well, now a member of your family's gonna have to die, otherwise they're all gonna die.
Well, I feel like that's mostly after he goes to his house and the mom is trying to do weird thumb sucking fetish stuff with him. And then,
I hated that scene. Hurt me to watch. He was just so patiently sitting there watching this stupid movie.
Hey, Groundhog Day is great. You shut your blasphemous mouth.
Yeah, it is really good.
I don't know what movie it was.
It was Groundhog Day. That's when they're in the diner.
That was Groundhog Day?
Yes. You couldn't hear Bill Murray being like, I'm God. You're not God, honey. That's 12 years of Catholic school talking.
I had no clue. I thought that was like some 50s like crappy movie.
50s, huh?
It
didn't show it on screen. And
yes, they did.
Like old-timey voices. I don't know.
They did. There was... It wasn't for very long, but they did show it on screen.
Well, I've never seen Groundhog Day,
well,
so...
clearly. We can infer that much. Yeah, so like I mean my interpretation was that Martin might have settled for just stealing Colin Farrell to be his new dad. He might have been chill with that. But then Colin Farrell's like, and so then he's got to like riff up a new solution real quick.
Well, I found
it's a pretty good solution. I don't know how well it works. We can talk about that later.
Yeah.
But
I also like how they never explain how Martin's doing that.
Well, if at all.
Well, that would be I mean, that would kind of defeat the point.
Right.
I mean, part of the reason this film works so well is because they never go to the police and they never tell anyone.
They're really not normal people. And they're fucking weirdos.
There are several scenes where, like, the daughter is hanging out with Martin and you're like, does she knows something. And it's unclear what she knows or what that impact that has. Martin's always around. You don't know what he's up to. It's never none of that's ever revealed. So it's like, as much as it could be, he's just God. The characters never put any effort into actually ruling out any other possibilities. So it's you gotta.
I know this story was based on the play Iphigenia, but I think it draws a lot of similarities, at least from something that I've read. I've never read this play, but I think the story that I would compare it the most to is Mark Twain's The Stranger. Because that story, what the premise is that it's a German village in the Middle Ages, like 1200 or something, and this like teenage kid comes into town and he's pretty weird. He's like supernaturally attractive. He's doing these supposedly magic tricks for all the kids, but the adults don't really think anything of it. They just think he's kind of a wanderer, so they don't really pay him any mind. But one of the tricks that he whips out one day is that he tells one of the main characters, who's like a kid, he says, yeah, your sister's gonna fall in a well and die tomorrow. And he's just like, that's not gonna come true. And
That's crazy.
Well, what happens next day is sister falls into a well and she fucking dies. And throughout the story, a lot of those other predictions are made, and it's unclear whether or not it's this kid who's actually doing it. Like, if he's saying it because he's doing it himself, if he's forcing these events to happen, or if he's just telling it like it is and that's how it's meant to be. Which I see
or like
a lot
he's
of
planning it.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying before, but I see a lot of Martin in The Stranger. Just this kind of ambiguous element that's saying things that are falling in line with what's happening in reality, but you never actually really know if he's the cause of it or not.
Sure.
It's very easy to pin the cause of it on him, but at the same time, it's never revealed to be directly him that's causing it.
I mean, Martin does like to take responsibility for it, but that doesn't prove anything. Because he gets the rest of the family to basically worship him like God, so there's his motive.
They get him to kiss his feet, a la Mary Magdalene and Jesus.
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, the premise of Iphigenia, as I understand it, is Agamemnon fucks up and like kills a deer or something, and then the god is like, well, and then he wants to sacrifice some virgin to the god, and then some other guy's like, no, don't sacrifice the virgin, that's bad. But then the virgin's like, actually, yeah, I should. That's cool. I want to die for that cause. But then Agamemnon's like, no, now actually, I don't want to sacrifice the virgin. And then there's like 50 different variations, and I don't know which one is canon. But,
yeah, I think it's Artemis.
Yeah,
because that would make
right.
sense.
But
you know what I thought when I said I think I know what it's based on, possibly? With not this. I thought it was going to have to do with more Hindu folklore, because they...
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that.
Well, because they, just as much, if not even more so, than the Greeks, put an emphasis on livestock as being holy. With the Greeks, it was more like the gods were just like, this is my cow, don't kill it or you're fucked.
Fuck with my cows.
But the Aryan people specifically, who would eventually be the evolve into the Indian people of today, in their sacred texts, the Vedas, they describe and depict cows and yaks as being holy creatures, because pretty much everything that they survived off of came from them.
Right.
They used their fur for clothes, they drank their milk, made it into cheese, shit like that. In the same way that the Polynesians call the coconut the tree of life.
Huh. Didn't know that.
You can get a whole lot of shit from a coconut, a lot of vitamins and minerals.
You got the meat, you got the water, you got the husk.
You use the husk for tinder. That's what you use it for.
Oh, I figured you could use it for like rope or something.
I mean, you can, but you're going to be tying it in pretty short strands.
Yeah.
You need something like, you need to cut something off of a tree so you can actually get long enough strands.
Riveting
Strand
train of thought
like
we've ended up on here.
Well, I wanted to mention, like, I was kind of, because there a lot of like relationships in this movie are like, the relationship between Martin and Steven is so ambiguous for a while. Like, I thought for like the first half of the movie that Steven just had like a necrophilia fetish, and Martin took him to like dead bodies or something.
That is a lot of mental gymnastics you did off of what was shown to you.
Well, I don't know, because it like showed like his wife going limp and shit. So I was like, oh, he must be like into dead bodies because he's like a surgeon. And
okay.
So
that's just mostly. I thought that fetish was just being
anesthesia.
Being knocked out through anesthesia.
Yeah.
Well, it
not
reflects
dead.
It reflects his character, because his character is like tends to dehumanize the people around him to like tools and objects, and to sort of maintain his suburban image and idyllic lifestyle.
I would think you would almost have to do that if you're in kind of a grisly position, like a surgeon or a coroner or something like that.
And he tries to distance himself emotionally from the responsibility of everything that he does, so that it's like he plays the reasons for everything that happens against each other, so he never has to face his own sort of responsibility. Which is why he internalizes that logic about, a surgeon can never kill someone, only an anesthesiologist. Whereas the anesthesiologist internalizes the same thing. They've both just sort of built an ideology that reflects all potential blame onto someone else. Right. And I think the idea behind Martin's sinister plot is to force him to take responsibility, which is why it doesn't work, because he manages to avoid doing that even in that situation. Like,
yeah, that's what I was saying, that Martin's plan, I think, would work on certain kinds of people, but not all kinds of people.
And the crazy thing is that it worked out the only conceivable way where that would have happened, because he doesn't get them in the living room and spin around randomly and shoot them until the boy is already going to die, because he's reached stage 3 of the illness, which means he's certainly going to die. So if he had brought them out there and hit anyone else but the kid, then 2 people would have died, and he would have been responsible for that extra body. The only reason he gets out of this clean is because he does it randomly and also happens to hit the one that was going to die anyway. Any other combination of events, it would have worked. Martin's plan would have worked, and he would have had to accept responsibility or like be broken as a human being, which is more likely, actually. But fuck it, just stumble, lucky Ted your way through that holy trial, and who needs it? It's fine. Another thing about the title of The Killing of a Sacred Deer is that one of the interpretations of the Iphigenia, or one of the versions of the Iphigenia tragedy, is that they're like, actually, let's just sacrifice a deer instead. And like, I haven't read it. I don't know if it just works out to sacrifice it. It seems like that would be worth a lot less, but who knows? But I when I was watching it, I kept thinking that Martin's goal wasn't to get a human sacrifice. It was to get a character shift in Steven's, personality.
Yes.
And like, and that was such an abject failure that you could almost see that as the substitution of an inferior product for the sacrifice. Like the equivalent of giving a deer instead of a virgin is him somehow wriggling out of having to make a choice.
What about a virgin deer?
Maybe that'll work. Maybe that'll be double points.
Maybe. Who knows?
Or maybe it cancels out. It just doesn't work at all.
Reminds me of the Promethean myth of how Prometheus tricked the gods into wanting the bones as opposed to the meat and fat and furs of an animal.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Nice.
So he just covered the bones in fat and was just like, hey, you'll want this, right, Zeus? And Zeus is like, yeah, I'll take it. He's just like, psych, it's actually made of bone, fucking idiot.
Go, dude.
You wascally Prometheus. I'll make an eagle eat your liver for all of time.
True.
And then your brother Epithemius will be a dumbass.
And like the general acting, cinematography is obviously great. It's just, but the characters, the direction of the characters is just so weird because they act so calm and normal throughout this entire situation, whereas anyone else would be freaking the fuck out.
I wouldn't
it really
say
adds
it's
to the atmosphere of the movie. I
wouldn't say it's necessarily normal per se. I would say it's very reserved, which it is. And it's still what I guess you could say is not an appropriate response to the situation they're in.
Yeah.
But even before they're in this situation, they're acting like this. It's
yeah.
Where
it's not like
their cadence is off. The way that they enunciate words is odd. They're just like, I really enjoyed my school today, Dad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like
I think
robots.
The creepiest part is definitely the kids, because like you'd expect kids to be sort of like not as disciplined as their parents, but they just the girl is just like, Dad, kill me. It's to show that I truly love you. Please kill me instead.
I feel like
even the kid Bob, when his eyes start bleeding, is just completely calm and is like, well, yeah, I guess I'm dying.
I feel like at that point the girl's so enamored with the idea of Martin that she's willing to be sacrificed to him because it's what Martin would want, I guess, in the end. But I see your point, yeah.
Well, remember when he goes to the school to ask about his kids, and he's like, which one of my kids is better?
Yeah, if you had to pick one, which is better?
But
I don't know. That's kind of a hard question.
But the principal or whatever is like, well, your daughter wrote a great essay on Iphigenia. She got an A+.
Yeah.
It's like
I didn't know what Iphigenia was. So.
And so the bit where Martin's like, I thought you understood, makes me think that he was able to tell her early because he was able to use that narrative comparison to sort of like make it a romantic prospect or something. Sort of similar to how a boy would corrupt a naive teenage girl usually, but in a more dramatic,
fucking Euripides. Fucking Euripides.
Hell yeah, dude. But even then, I don't even know if she's actually being sincere in that scene, because if she read Iphigenia, then she probably also knows that that's a good way to increase relations with the person who's making the choice, is to be so willing to make that, to sacrifice yourself. It's kind of like the contradictory thing where it's like, oh, well, you're the one you're willing to give up your life, which means you need to stay alive. And I need to pick someone else to do it.
Thinking in retrospect, I'm happy that these people kind of acted like that, because every other movie, or like freaking A Quiet Place or something, the like dad is like crying his eyes out, like, no, I get it, God damn it, no.
Yes, well, A Quiet Place is a bad movie, so that is.
Yeah,
and I hate it when people cry. I hate emotions.
Right.
Yeah, that. Yep.
I didn't say that.
You got my
I just said it was like. It's
I was saying that to Ryan because he was.
Okay. I don't fucking like John Krasinski and his stupid, hateable face. I just want to punch him in his fucking jaw every time I see him. And he's got that new show where he's like, no, it's not even that. It's that he was in The Office and then he branched out to like American imperialist propaganda, where he's in like the Benghazi movie, and he's in like this Amazon series where he goes to like Syria or something and then just represents American business interests. And everyone's like, oh, he's just the cool office guy. He's a good actor. He's just fucking doing propaganda all over the place and making like shitty, barely original horror movies. And then like, now he's got that annoying thing where he's like, oh, how about we do a news show that's all good news? And it's like, how about you shut your fucking mouth, you stupid bitch? Like, there's about 2 seconds worth of good news on a daily basis, you fucking asshole. You're like, that's actually a dishonest framing that you've created for your, quote, news program. Jesus Christ.
Because either way, it's still stretching the truth just to get views, because
of course.
It's just almost like an inverse of the Streisand effect at this point, because that's still so much in effect with the press today that people would be willing to search for that outlet, and it would be popular, and that's all they really care about in the end, is it being popular.
Well,
it would self-perpetuate.
Heavily mired in the merging of information and entertainment, where it's like, wouldn't it be more fun to hear about only the good news? Why, yes, it would. So let's watch that.
Wouldn't it also be more fun if we used this to distract the public, because they only need their bread and circuses?
Mm-hmm. Bread and circuses.
Yeah, I've never been to the circus, actually.
Me neither.
I went to one traveling circus. It was pretty sick.
But like, I mean, for a long time I've been like, damn, there's no way those elephants are getting treated properly. I'm not going to do that shit. I don't even really like going to the zoo anymore, because it's like, how about you let the fucking animals out, you asshole?
Yeah, no, the zoo is bullshit, but the circus I went to didn't have any animals, as far as I remember. The one part I do remember is they had the motorcycle ball, where they had those two guys in a dirt bike just ride around in the ball, and it was fucking scary to me. I thought they were going to crash and like kill themselves. They also had a human cannon. That was pretty neat. Just the man completely splattered upon thousands of children. It was cool.
Just gonna let that sit. Let that really easy. Cut that voice clip and use it later in court.
Just as a last aside, I think I only really have problems with zoos if they're keeping animals outside of their natural climate in other climates, like with polar bears and penguins in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's probably...
If you actually gave them everything they needed to be comfortable, then it's fine, but it just seems like the amount of space you need for some of these animals to actually be comfortable is like not tenable business-wise, and so no one ever does it. And it's just like, I don't know. Maybe it'd have to be a non-profit to actually be good.
That's why national parks are 12 times better.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you can go around and the animals can come up to you and eat your children.
Yeah. And they're protected. They have all the space they need.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's just... We can get rid of a few kids here and there.
Mm-hmm.
We can stand to lose a few kids.
I've got this new plan in the works to kind of help with that. I'm code phrasing it China virus.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if y'all have heard of it. It's been going
That's
pretty well.
a code phrase for it?
Wait, what day is it? May 3rd, 2018? Okay, just checking. So
Yeah.
Sure that...
20. Oh.
Yeah.
I thought, okay. Huh. Neat.
What
Somehow
did
I'm
you...
happy again.
Did you seriously think it was 2020? What the fuck?
Yeah,
No,
man,
what-
you're having a weird moment.
Yeah, at some point the government was like, "What if we do daylight savings time, but we shift a year or two back?"
We gotta finish this podcast up because I gotta do homework for high school. And I have to drive
What?
to school and listen to
Bodies by Drowning Pool.
Kids See Yay by Kanye. No, that was out in June.
One, nothing wrong with me. Two,
Two,
wrong with
nothing wrong with me. Three.
I was watching. Have you guys seen that video that's like future consoles and it's like Xbox 720 and
I've seen that like
Wii
I
phone?
think
200 times.
I think
It's
I
amazing.
did, but I first heard that song from a Vice City play as Mario mod
Yeah.
video.
Oh yes. Man, YouTube used to be actually good.
Yeah, what happened?
I'll tell you what happened. Suddenly it became less about the individual and became more about a message. Just like the Catholic Church.
Huh. Are you...
What?
Is it what?
My brain stopped functioning. I didn't know where to go with that sentence.
What are you saying?
I was gonna say, are you implying, and then I didn't know where to go with it, so I just decided to quit right there.
Are you implying the
ahead.
Catholic Church has done some bad things over the years?
I think it was gonna be something along the lines of, are you implying that YouTube is gonna be as bad as religion? But I couldn't find a way to make it.
I mean,
You know, if it exists for several hundred years, then probably.
yeah. At this point, it's just how long it's going to be around, because it's probably doing as much damage. At least if it may be a little more indirect than religion, but it's still like doing some serious damage.
Well, that's the thing. Because communication wasn't as centralized in the fucking Middle Ages, the only way you could really spread a message was
That's
just
true.
by conquering people or killing them.
Yeah, but when you have people like Stefan Molyneux with like hundreds of thousands of subscribers preaching literal Nazism, it's hard to measure the negative impact of that, but it's probably pretty fucking bad.
I want the Cube game back. I think that would really bring us together again, if that
What?
Stephen Molyneux Cube game came back.
No, that you're thinking
Yo.
of Peter Molyneux, not Stefan Molyneux.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, are you serious?
Yes.
You've
those are
done this
different
on this
people.
podcast before. I'm like 90% sure we've done this exact same sequence of whatever. Uh,
I don't remember talking about Stephen.
the kid Barry Cogan as
As
Martin.
Martin is very good.
He's incredible. Like he actually, I don't know how you actually realize that character. Somehow he did it, but I don't know how you like.
Wasn't
Like
he
he's
in
such a
how he was?
freaking weirdo, but he's like a human.
But everything he says is it sounds exactly like he's thinking way faster than he can speak, and he's trying to maintain a very very carefully considered and crafted illusion, and it's just that is always in effect. He never like breaks that very specific pattern of speech and acting. It's really impressive stuff. I mean, everyone's good in this movie, but
Yeah, especially fucking the kid Sonny Soljic, who was like, it was 2017, so he was probably like 12 or something. But he was really good in it. Probably one of the best like modern child actors.
He's from fucking Roswell. I've been there. That's cool.
Once again, the kids could easily be a catastrophic point of failure for this film, and they
In
aren't.
every movie, a kid
yeah,
could be a
like-
catastrophic point of failure. Speaking of like kids in movies being good, like this kind of felt like a Kubrick movie to me almost. Not in like every single way.
Because
Definitely not
every
aesthetically.
clinical film is just a Kubrick movie.
It just kind of.
I was being ironic, but yes, okay, sure, fine.
I don't know. It just felt Kubrickian.
I mean, it
to me.
reminded me a lot of Eyes Wide Shut when I first watched it, but Nicole Kidman is doing a lot of that by being in a weird, fucked up sex couple and being Nicole Kidman, which is also Eyes Wide Shut. So.
I think the Kubrick quality of a film, and this is coming from someone who admittedly hasn't watched a whole lot of his stuff, is not necessarily what you see, but what goes on behind the scenes and the dedication that it takes to get some of the shots and some of the performances to be like basically pixel perfect.
Yeah.
Frame perfect.
It's just
filmmaking.
It's just that, that we need to do this again. The leaves were 2 feet from where I wanted them to be, or shit like that.
Yeah.
That's just my take. I did really like the cinematography. I liked how, I don't want to say that, I guess the word would be linear, but there were a lot of like if you look at the poster, I think that's a perfect example of the way that the film is composed for a lot of the wider shots, where it's just the characters take up a small portion of the frame and they're almost kind of like in the middle of a series of lines, whether or not they're pointing at the screen with a vanishing point or we're seeing them from above. I think is an interesting stylistic choice.
The thing that got me to see this movie, and I've been wanting to watch this movie for a long time just because I'm a Lanthimos stan from what I'd already seen, but is some Twitter account, which I don't normally browse Twitter, but occasionally I go on there to read some tweet someone else posts. Posted this shot, the shot of when the kid collapses after getting off the escalator, and it's like way up on the second floor, and it's like someone looking down past the railing at it, which is, I was like, damn, that looks awesome. I have to watch this movie. And that whole sequence is great, like watching them descend the escalator and then...
Yeah.
And then seeing that kid fall because he's a stupid idiot.
Yeah, totally, dude.
I hate kids.
Fucking brain don't work.
Yep.
What were you saying?
I don't remember. But yeah.
You're talking about that shot, and
it's a great shot, and it's a great movie.
Twitter.
That's why I picked the movie.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I admit I didn't give myself as much time to watch this film as I normally would. Usually what I do is I watch it all the way through once, and then I kind of click through it and rewatch certain scenes that I want to kind of reevaluate. I didn't have the time to do that this time.
That's fine.
Rip.
We definitely don't do that, usually.
I always just watch it, like, the day
5
before.
to 6 minutes before we start the podcast.
No, well, I watched it last night this time. But last time, yes, Thief and the Cobbler was a very quick job. Or Arabian Night. I didn't know how to title that episode.
Just
the
Thief and the
longest version
Cobbler.
of it possible.
Thief and the Cobbler,
Miramax version, 1992.
I mean, you might as well, because most people just refer to it as The Thief and the Cobbler. They don't call it fucking Once or Arabian Night or anything
Harvey
like
Weinstein cut.
that. Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was... Oh, no, I was thinking of another movie from the Weinstein Company I watched recently.
Dougal?
His dirty fucking grubby paws are on so many movies, it's ridiculous.
What was it? I think
It's
it
like
was...
we're talking
Oh, it was
over
Django.
1,000.
We were watching Django.
SpongeBob
Yeah,
movie?
every Tarantino movie, Weinstein's paws all over it.
That sucks.
It's great. What are you talking about? Well, the crazy thing is, if we actually knew all of the sexual abusers in Hollywood, it would be like every movie. If we actually,
it would be
if all of them were
over
as
the
public,
place.
it would. If they were all as public as Weinstein was, then it would be pretty much every movie. The only reason Weinstein got as public as they did is because it became less strategically necessary to keep him from being a sort of scapegoat, decoy, abuser. I mean, he did do it, and he's a piece of shit. But it's like he's one of like a massive list of pieces of shit.
Well, it's like in the Roald Dahl book, The Witches. You kill one, you kill one queen, another one pops up.
Mm-hmm. Because the queens are just sort of in the shadows, and they're just waiting.
Also, Harvey Weinstein is bald and has no toes and likes to eat children and turns children into mice, etc., etc.
Yeah.
I could believe that.
Sure.
There's some freaks. There's some freaks out in Hollywood.
I mean, I think there are probably some lizard people somewhere. I don't know which ones.
I
Clintons,
keep
maybe probably Clintons.
I've been kind of drumming up on that idea that I mentioned the other day, that there should be a survival horror-esque game set in like a Beverly Hills or Hollywood type setting.
Oh yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
I think that would work really well.
Maybe like They Live kind of deal with, but
somewhat,
you're less
yeah.
good at killing them, and you more just kind of have to.
Yeah,
Silent
you're
Hill
not
Hollywood.
Roddy Piper.
Wait,
You can't
are we sort of making a really long roundabout way to talking about We Happy Few but good?
Oh no.
Maybe not.
No, not particularly.
Okay, good.
There wouldn't be as many incredulous Monty Python references, or it wouldn't have survival mechanics. It wouldn't be randomly generated worlds.
Survival mechanics.
Look, they
I
work
need
well
my
when they're in
water
that setting.
and
They don't work well when you
hunger
jam them into other
meters.
shit. Like Ark Survival Evolved is fine,
Crafting.
but don't shove that shit into a game that doesn't need it.
I mean, I think another important thing is that you don't have to go whole hog with the survival mechanics to have them in there. Like I was playing Atom RPG the other day, and it's like there's just a hunger meter. There's not like a separate thirst meter, so it's like you don't have to spend all fucking day like gotta make sure I got my canned meat and my fucking water bottle. It's just like your hunger meter goes up. All right, then consume something, and then get.
Well, that's
back
the
to
thing. Well, that's the thing. It's about synergy of mechanics, and if you're building a game that is predicated on a certain kind of survival, that being more emphasized on physical survival, if we're talking Maslow, then you would have meters like that. But if it's something you kind of want to layer on top of a game to add more immersion, then yeah, you could just do a hunger meter like in Adam or in like Super Hide Light or something like that. Except in Super Hide Light, it's way worse.
Yeah.
You basically have to keep eating, otherwise you'll starve to death and lose 20 HP every turn.
And sometimes I see like a mod for something that's like, well, not only does it add, overhauls the hunger system to include caloric intake and fucking good and bad cholesterol. This probably isn't even a real thing, but you know what I mean. There's a degree where it's just like I don't.
I mean, that could be
Why would I wanna do
interesting,
that?
but
Yeah, I guess I think of it as not being very interesting when I'm supposed to be like saving the world also at the same time.
yes, that would be good for a more simulation type deal.
Mm-hmm.
When that is what you want to focus on, but not
Got
when
to
you have.
save the world.
I've
Although
got to
I guess
save
if the-
Britain.
If the plot is actually me saving the world, it's probably so boring and cliche that maybe I would want to run away into micromanaging hunger meters. So, there you go.
Or becoming a cardiologist.
We're right on schedule for spending half an hour discussing the movie, roughly, loosely, and then
Ophthalmologist.
degenerating into generalized game development discussion.
You know, I mentioned this podcast to someone, and they were like, "Oh, you should show it to me." And I was like, "You really don't
No.
want to see it." And then they're like, "Oh, it can't be that bad." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's pretty bad." And I shared with them a link and left them. I don't know if they've watched an episode yet, but
Wow. Yeah. You know, I don't mean to intimidate you into staying on the podcast. So if you feel that your good name is being tarnished by being on the worst podcast ever made,
I mean,
you do you, man. Me and Ryan can bullshit.
no, we can't.
Can riff some shit out. Probably, it won't
I'm
be,
terrible at
It
bullshitting.
won't be as good.
You and Sawyer would be better with your own.
Well, yeah,
podcast.
but I don't want to.
It's the combo. I'm the mediator.
you are the ego to Dunk's id and my super ego.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, you know, just don't feel coerced into staying on a bad podcast if you're trying to get a job in the future or something. Trying to get a job on a good podcast. You don't want your name associated with it.
It's got like a $500 microphone or something.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, it's got a neon sign and like a brick wall.
Yeah, I feel like at that point, that's like that image. That I think you're describing the Joe Rogan podcast when you're saying that.
Yeah, Joe Rogan,
I
Cold Ones, fucking.
I feel like at that point, that's the ultimate like sellout. And you know what? I mean, if I get to the point where I basically want to sell my soul to the internet to make money, then you know what? Fuck it. Might as well go all out. But I'm not quite at that point yet. So
Hell yeah.
Yeah, you're a hardworking man. Unlike us, who just bullshit and spend all our unemployment money on door.
I mean, that's the
unemployment
thing.
money, you fucking bitch. I don't have any.
yeah, I haven't. What is unemployment at? Like 25% or something? 23?
It's
a lot.
ridiculously high.
It's a lot.
It's getting to Detroit Become Human levels, like unironically. I think it was like 30-something% in the game.
Yeah, that was like a third of the population.
It's so fucked.
If only we had sex androids, though, then it'd be all better.
Yeah.
Yep.
But they would come from China and they'd be like, I don't want to fuck a Chinese sex android. That'll give me more than the coronavirus, obviously.
Don't give a shit.
Chinese
if I could
AIDS.
If the trade-off
more
is
worried
get
about lead
coronavirus, get coronavirus and have a sex robot, that's the easiest fucking decision I ever made, dude. Absolutely.
You guys,
a sex robot.
You guys remember back in like 2008, there was a huge recall of toys from China because of lead paint problems.
That rocks.
I like to imagine that would happen with sex robots once those start getting massively manufactured. It's just like, oh, we got another one coming into the hospital because of lead poisoning. Where'd he lick this time? He was licking the nips.
Yeah, I'd still take that trade, I think. I mean, what happens when you get too much lead poisoning? You like kind of lose your mind. That sounds fun. I'd be fine with that.
That's more mercury poisoning. Lead poisoning isn't as fun. If you can call getting mercury poisoning fun.
Well, I mean, if you're delusional enough, it's sort of like flipping a coin, I guess.
I suppose you might as well just become like a hatter from the 1800s where you press mercury into cotton to make felt. And just wear hats all day and wait for it to seep into your brain.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, as long as that gets me a sex robot, that's the trade I'm trying to make here.
Ah, I see. As long as it's in your mind, then anything's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take that. A simulated sex, as long as it's pretty convincing, and I'm not constantly reminded of reality again.
It could be like that YouTuber that made a toilet filled with mercury instead of water. And just every time you shit, you have the chance of some mercury just slipping into your asshole.
What a great invention, dude. Welcome to Shark Tank.
Why did he do that?
Because he thought it'd be funny. I don't know, because he was like.
This is the problem with people having disposable income, is because they spend it on this shit.
Well, he's just a science channel. He has like
that's what that is, science? Okay.
Science is collecting absorbent amounts of data and doing analysis. Science isn't just let's pour some shit into this vial and see what happens.
Yeah, he's trying to see if it'll flush.
That's not what. You're
telling me we have no information on the interaction between mercury and porcelain until that guy did that? Is that what you're saying? Because
it was actually mercury in the asshole. That was the thing.
Yeah, he also dipped like his entire hand.
We have no information on mercury's contact with human skin or anything. Because we definitely don't already know it's poisonous.
Well, he did dip his entire hand into mercury just to pull the thing to make it flush.
Okay, but we know that that's bad for you. It's not like this is breaking news. This is like that fucking guy that got stung by all those insects again after that one guy already did it. And it was like, you don't have to do this again. It's been done. You're literally just... This is just jackass at this... Not funny jackass, because you're not Bam Margarine, and you can't do it. You don't have the riffs. To be Bam
Margarine. Have you seen him? He's a little on the.
He's got a bit of a butterface.
He looks like he's becoming more and more like his dad every day.
Yeah.
One day he's gonna turn into Vinny from what was that MTV show that had Bam and pals? I don't remember.
Wild Boys?
No, it was it's like Bam's. I don't remember. Bam's
Viva
pad
La
or some
Bam?
shit. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
He had so many just like lame shows.
Vinny was the only good person on that show just because he was incomprehensible.
You're not talking about Vinny Beetle, are you? Cumtown lore legend Vinny Beetle?
No.
Okay.
I don't think Vinny Beetle is like 65 years old.
No. He's a con artist basically.
Yeah.
He's pretty cool. He rocks.
I see.
So this movie was good.
We're past the 30-minute mark, Ryan. It's too late to talk about the killing of a sacred deer.
What time is it? 44. Okay.
It's good.
Yeah, I think I might also give it either an 8 or a 7.
The ending didn't feel really satisfactory to me. I like being satisfied with my endings.
Well,
I know that's
what would you,
stupid, and that's not the point of the movie.
what would you do? How would you write the ending?
Well, I'd either have it be really depressing where he just can't accept it, and he just has all his fucking kids die, or like you guys said, he accidentally kills his wife or his daughter, and then just has 2 dead kids.
But
and
I don't know. I don't know if that would actually be more depressing than what happens, though. To be honest.
Or maybe like Martin just like tortures him for the rest of his life. I don't know.
Because the point of the ending is that no character change or growth happened at all. So it's like it renders the entire thing pointless.
It's a pure loss.
Yeah.
Nothing is gained.
Okay.
Because Martin is a sociopath, but he's right in the sense that if things had played out like he planned, whatever guilt Colin Farrell was feeling would have been to some degree alleviated. But it didn't really play out that way. And the guilt is probably still going to bother him in the same way it has bothered him since it happened. And now his kid is also dead. While it's happening.
Yes.
Rip.
The shittier
No more God
kid.
of War.
Mm-hmm. Man, that girl really wants to get some dick from Martin, but he's like, nah.
Apparently she played young Snow White in Snow White and the Huntsman.
I have major deja vu. I feel like this is like my 3rd like deja vu of this specific moment.
Well, yeah, I mean, we already tried to record this like a few
I
days
came
ago.
to you in the dream web, and I...
Now you're gonna be making fucking Dreamweb references. You'll be one of the 2. You'll be one of the 2 other people that actually knows what that game is that I know.
God. I feel like I dreamt about the Dreamweb last night because like I woke up and I was like, I'm on a very important mission, and then I realized, oh wait, no, I'm not. I don't know. I was sure not on an important mission. And then
that means it worked.
Yeah.
There's a door flying into the spaceship, and it's gonna kill us all. You have to do something.
It's a flying door.
Can you please explain the logic behind bringing up the beginner's guide while we're talking about Dreamweb? Can you please explain what train of thought you were on?
No, like there's nothing deep to it. I was just thinking.
Well, I know.
What's like an important thing in like a space thing? But it's stupid.
I mean, Dreamweb's not really about space. It's more Martian Gothic.
Martian Gothic. That sounds ugly.
No, it's actually looks...
You've never seen Martian Gothic architecture? You've never seen the Martian Notre Dame? Looks pretty nice.
I'll check it out.
It's got like fossilized bacteria all over it. It's crazy. I remember reading an article eons ago, like when I was like 10 or 12, that was like, scientists theorized that if there was like actual animals on Mars, they'd be beaver-like creatures, and I think that was one of the first articles that I remember reading, and just I laughed out loud, just like, that's stupid.
Yeah. Although it would be cool. We get to Mars and there's just fucking beavers everywhere. It's like, whoa.
It would be cool, but I was just in my head, I was imagining like scientists in a room like trying to draw up a beaver-like alien. Just like with little antennas coming out of the top of its head. Just like, okay, guys, this is what a Martian would look like.
He's got the face of a gray from Roswell.
Yeah, but like the body shape and the body shape and fur and the flat tail of a beaver, and really big front teeth.
Hell yeah.
That sounds like an enemy from a 3D platform game.
God damn it! Fuck. I was thinking more of a mascot, but still 3D platformer.
Enemy or mascot, either way. It has to be some small furry animal that children can get easily attached to.
Or at least
he's
in
a
theory,
tutorial character.
But they may not necessarily in practice get attached to him.
Teaches you how to press the C buttons.
The C button? We playing Genesis now?
No, we're playing Banjo on the 64.
Do you even use the C buttons to play Banjo?
Yeah, you do. You have to use Z and to use the Kazooie moves.
Right.
I mean, you can use the C buttons to move the camera. Patricians hold the R button to keep the camera behind them the whole time.
Oh.
True. Let's talk about how Banjo-Kazooie is the best 3D platformer.
Do you want to?
and
Can we say the next movie before we move on to other content?
Nobody has ever really come that close to.
The next movie is Banjo-Kazooie.
Just the full cutscenes.
Just the cutscenes, not the.
Like we talk about games as if they're movies.
I remember saying.
Yeah,
that
was the bit. Last of Us full movie.
Yeah, we should do that.
8 hours. Yeah.
I mean, Last of Us is basically a movie.
Yeah, like if you picked like a modern game or like a Metal Gear game or something, you could probably. I mean,
pick a game of like David 3 cutscenes total. Like fucking.
I mean, it would be funny to do Captain Novolin. Just the cutscenes of Captain Novolin.
Like cheesy.
Or what about Rex Ronan? That'd be a good one. Rex Ronan's good because that actually has a plot.
What about the Eden series?
Nice. Good.
You mean Evo Search for Eden?
No, he's talking about these. I think they're H games, but they're either H games or Borderline H games.
They're really terrible 3D H games, and they have like this main villain that's like this creepy fucking doctor face on like a bunch of alien tentacles or something.
Yeah, I think I've heard of that.
Which look like knockoffs of Roger Bacon from Shadow Hearts, which is a game that I may progress in if I wanted to grind the two weakest characters for 3 hours. But
the only H game I ever played was like a 2D demake of I think it was Demon Souls. It was like a better version of Salt and Sanctuary, and instead of it was called Demon Sperm, of course, and you literally collected cum. That was the souls in that game was sperm. You used it to level up. You bought items with it. You lost it all if you died. You could get it all back if you went back to the spot where you died.
I 100%ed Katawa Shoujo when I was even more pathetic than I am now.
I heard this really good bit from stolen from Alex from the Let Me Tell You About podcast, where he was like, "What if in Bloodborne instead of the word blood, it was replaced with cum?"
Nice.
Wait, sorry.
Wait. Mario was on that podcast?
No, but then in like what was the in Monster Musume, the word cum is replaced with blood.
Ugh.
That's a good one.
I cannot imagine that this is funny even when someone delivers it well, let alone your delivery, which is just like limply monotone description of the bit as told by someone funnier.
Yeah,
you would fit right in to the killing of the sacred deer. Yeah. Like, remember that scene where Martin tells the joke to the girl?
Oh god, I love that scene. It's so fucking awkward. It's so flat.
It sounds like 20 things, hearts and asses.
And she's just like trying to get him to fuck, and he doesn't want to.
The one thing I forgot to bring up was the one where
but worse.
Where Colin Farrell is like desperately trying to like have his kid tell him that he's just doing this as a prank.
Yeah,
and he's like,
man.
I jerked my dad off when I was a kid. I never told that to anyone in my entire life.
That's a fascinating bit of character development where like he's been holding on to that for when he'll need to use it for some really obscure, elaborate plot to reveal, like to get someone to reveal something. But that was actually just Colin Farrell just speaking, as is, not even in character. Part of the script. Yeah.
I would almost like to imagine that, in that scene, maybe what was his name? Yorgos? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yorgos Lanthimos
was just like, I was just gonna say his first name. He was just like, "Hey, Colin, can you like improvise a really creepy story from your childhood or something like that?" And he's just like, "Oh yeah, sure, I got this one. You just leave it to me." Oh, hoity-toity.
Colin Farrell rocks. He almost saved 2003 Daredevil with his brilliant performance.
I knew that was going to be brought up.
He's just not in it enough. If he was in it for like 5 more minutes, it would be a great movie. That's all it would take.
Yeah, I think probably my favorite scene in The Killing of a Sacred Deer was when Probably in the final sequence when he puts the beanie on his head and he spins around in a circle and then he spits a paperclip out at the sun. It pierces his throat. That was really good.
Good movie.
It is very good. On to
my next
Banjo-Kazooie. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. No, last week I said I wanted to do something horror related because I was tired of feeling good, I guess. And this is gonna be.
It is pretty gay. So
this is an extremely obvious choice if you know me.
Oh my god, you're not. Please tell me you're not gonna.
A Quiet Place.
Unfortunately, I am going to choose Hereditary.
Can you like? You can pick a movie that you haven't seen, right? If you've only seen like 3 movies.
Well, I figured that like we would only the whole point of this podcast is just showing each other movies.
That's what it has been, but I haven't been watching like as many new movies as I should be. So next week or the next time I pick, I might just be like, yeah, I've been meaning to watch this Bergman movie. So you guys,
because I'm scared of like risking it being like really bad, and I'm like, this looks like a really cool movie. I'm sure I will love it.
You had us watch Into the Wild, so I mean, I don't.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, if it's bad, we'll still at least get a discussion out of it. I think the only worst case scenario is just like if the film is like just boring, if it doesn't really give us anything interesting to talk about.
Well, and if we've all seen it for the first time, then it can, in a way, it might even be more interesting because then it's like, I thought I was going to like it, but actually I wanted to fucking kill myself.
Well, you know what? Actually, I did have a backup for this.
Well, I mean, pick whatever you want. I'm just going to roast you for it regardless.
Was it horror animated film?
No.
Was it The Page Master?
I remember hearing about this on a lot of top 10 movies in the year lists too, and I was interested in it. Called It Comes at Night. I have no clue what it's about.
That's my biography title.
I wanted to see that, but I never.
But the poster of just the dog, and it's in just complete darkness, staring into like the void, and it just says "It Comes at Night." It was very intriguing to me.
It's either really good or really shitty when you have something like that, where it's like deliberately obfuscating what the entire point of the movie is.
I suppose. I have no clue what it's about, but it looks like a cool horror movie.
Okay.
And it's A24, I think. It probably is.
I love that.
Everything I watch is A24.
I love that square on a grid. I love that square in an Excel spreadsheet, A24. It's my favorite.
It's more of a rectangle, but yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Unless you're weird and you actually.
Single digit, you can if you're. Square.
I've seen A24 weird people who just make it square. Square Excel sheets disturb me.
Yeah, that is kind of cosmic horror. Now that I think about it.
A24 makes movies for people who want to say they're into movies on Twitter.
For film Twitter, yeah.
Yeah.
But they turn out good a lot of the time, so.
Although I did watch
like
a
John
lot of good
Mulaney
movies
and the
accidentally
Cyclone
when I was in the theater, or working in the movie theater, like mid-90s. I watched in the movie theater just by accident. I was like, "This is interesting. I'll watch this after my shift." That was good. Anyway, yeah, it comes at night. For next week. Now we can talk about Banjo-Kazooie. Now you have my permission as the editor of the podcast to talk about whatever you want.
You have my permission to talk of Banjo-Kazooie.
That's a big...
Don't do it. Stop.
What is it called? A Gingy? A Jinjo?
A Gingy?
The fucking... What are they called?
You had it right the second time. It's a Jinjo.
It's a Jinjo?
Jinjo!
Jinjo! That sounded really incorrect.
I usually call them Ginge, just for short.
It's a little...
Which sounds like a racial slur.
Insensitive, but...
Gingers?
Not really. That's just a word. That's a homophone for a real word.
To have a game where Rusty Bucket Bay is as bad as it gets in your game, that's a pretty good game.
Honestly, yeah.
because it's bad relative to the rest of it, but like it's really not that bad.
It could be way worse.
I feel like there might be Mario 64 levels that I like less than Rusty Bucket, but I can't name them off the top of my head.
I don't know. I wasn't a huge fan of the all cloud level. I forget what that one was called.
Yeah,
Ride. Not Rainbow Ride. The other one that's in the same area. The one that's like entirely based around you flying and then shooting yourself from cannons. Mostly because if you fall in that level, they just shoot you back outside the castle.
Yeah.
And you have to go all the way fucking back up, and it's annoying as shit. So, not a huge fan of that. That doesn't really happen in Benj.
Because it's perfect. It's almost perfect.
It is almost perfect, but it's as close as we're probably going to get in a long time. Just in terms of... I'd almost put Mario 64 and Banjo at kind of two opposite ends of the scale in terms of 3D platform design, because in Mario you start with all the tools that you need to finish the game. You don't unlock anything. The only thing that's really unlocked is skill in the player, which is just something that's built gradually over time by you beating harder and harder challenges. But in Banjo, it's much more concrete, where you actually do upgrade your, not only like get new moves, but I was gonna say upgrade your moves, but then I remembered, oh wait, no, that's in 2E, my bad. But every move, just like in Mario, has its purpose in terms of puzzle solving, and initially it's pretty clear what you have to do for those kinds of puzzles, but eventually they introduce different kinds of twists. So like, in the beginning when you learn the egg shit move, it's like, okay, I'm probably never going to use this. And then, you run into the bucket in Treasure Trove Cove. He says, I have to block him up with stones. Well, I don't really have stones, and I didn't find any in this level.
But I have solid turds.
I might as well shit into his mouth.
Yeah.
Or not into his mouth, or his top, I guess. It's a Mr. Bucket situation. And then eventually you get to like Mad Monster Mansion with the flower pots, where you shit eggs in there, and it causes the flowers to come up. Stuff like that. The challenge isn't the same as with Mario, because in Mario it's about a platforming challenge in terms of, okay, well, how do I need to what sequence of moves do I need in order to surpass this environment? Whereas in Banjo it's more puzzle solving.
Yeah.
In terms of...
Which I think I prefer mostly from lack of skill at Mario more than anything else.
Well, that's why I put them at opposite ends of the scale, just because... Well, not in terms of like, if you're shit at Mario, then you're gonna like Banjo, but it's just right. Banjo is much less about more dynamic movement than in Mario. There's not a whole lot of like move canceling you can do, and I've seen bits and pieces of Banjo speedruns, and it's mostly just playing the game fast. It's just kind of a vanilla run. There's not a whole lot of like glitches that you really do. I have seen some where like there's probably the most famous one is the ability to skip the entirety of the final board,
which is awesome.
Which is a cool glitch. I'm a fan of that one.
The only reason that run is any good, probably, because like for a while you kind of had to do that.
Yeah.
This motherfucker's literally just playing Silent Hill 4 while recording the podcast.
I was trying to put it on my speakers so you couldn't hear it through my headphones.
He's doing a full-on Nick Mullen play.
Because I don't know anything about Banjo. I know I've seen it, but I have never played it all the way through.
Well, maybe you should play that instead. I wouldn't have anything
to add to the discussion.
Maybe you should play that. It's pretty good.
I did come up with an idea for the thumbnail, where
it's just Banjo.
I don't know if I want to say it on the podcast.
You're not going to trick us into ending the podcast early when we still have 3 hours of Banjo-Kazooie discussion to go through.
You know what? No one's going to listen to it. So I had an idea where, for the thumbnail, where I just have the whatever from Killing of a Sacred Deer poster, right? But then
you just have a deer with X's over its eyes.
Low opacity, but just enough to see is Banjo.
Yeah.
And then that starts getting less and less transparent, and then we just become a video game podcast by like week 5.
Well, no, what it needs to be is, during this episode, I remember we brought it up once, it needs to be full opacity then, but it needs to reset after we get back on discussing other shit. And then it needs to go back up again once we get
have
to
it
this
change
point.
over the course of the... Ryan's not going to do that. That's too much work.
I might. I don't
It's
know if
not that
clever
much
enough.
more work, I would think.
Well, is anyone gonna watch? Like,
I shared it with someone. I already
I mean,
told
my
you.
dad will listen to the whole thing. I don't know if he's
well,
going
yeah,
to be watching
listen. They're not gonna stare at the screen of the thumbnail.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he does. I mean, he's a pretty big fan. I saw him. He bought one of our posters last time I was over at his place.
Wait,
Let us
what?
know.
He was wearing the shirt. I guess
Send
he
in a
went to
letter,
us
Hunk's
and got
dad.
the shirts.
I was really confused for a second.
Send in a letter, Mr. Minter.
You know, those bus ads are really starting to pay off, I
Don't-
think.
Docs? Oh, whatever. Docs me. I don't care.
dogs.
You said my last name on the podcast, which I think is a new one.
I thought that was wrong. Last time I said it, you told me that was the wrong version of your last name.
Oh, maybe you actually did say it wrong, and I heard you say it right because I'm an idiot. Who cares? I don't give a shit.
You
Come
don't.
find me. I've literally posted my phone number on my personal YouTube, and I think
Nice.
Which
everyone.
I should have.
I think everyone who
should've
saw
texted,
it
but I was-
assumed that I made up a phone number, but no, that's my phone number.
I was afraid
So
it was
does it
like a
have-
sex line or something.
Does it have 555 in it?
No.
Okay. Because that's usually the go-to for fake phone numbers in media.
Yeah.
Which, like, I don't think any phone numbers actually have that, or maybe only, like,
Yeah.
some do. 1-800 numbers, maybe.
It's very rare.
Right.
Very rare, I think. 555-6969. If I remember correctly, I think that was a passcode I had to enter in to start Spy Fox. Because that's one of the
really?
first puzzles you have to do is you have to get into the spy base on this little Greek island.
We should do a ranking of all of the Jiggies in Banjo-Kazooie. The first one. All
Well,
100
wait,
Jiggies ranked.
Oh, Jesus.
What's the worst one? What's the shittiest one to get? Let's start there.
The
Well,
one behind
it
the
depen-
fans in Rusty Bucket, easy, 100%.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it depends on what you mean by shitty as well, in terms of just like, you know, the hardest ones to get versus the amount of fun it is to obtain it.
I think that one
Well,
probably is the worst by both of those metrics. We'll have to
Yeah.
average out both metrics for the...
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what would my favorite Jiggy be. That's a tough one. I quite like the one that's at the top of Treasure Trove because
Yeah,
it's
that's a
kind
good
of
one.
like it's like the cherry on top of the ice cream sundae that is that level.
Yeah.
Because you're only because at that point then you can just jump off the tower and like float your way all the way down and watch Banjo die,
Nice.
which I always enjoyed a whole lot. And you can cheapen it very easily by using the flight pad to just fly your way up, but it doesn't feel the same.
Yeah, I don't know. My favorite... I mean, there's a lot of them that are up there, but they have kind of a caveat. Like, the one where you get for, like, destroying all the snowmen in Freeze Easy, I like, because it's satisfying to destroy the snowmen, but also it's
Right.
kind of a pain in the ass to actually do that process.
Yeah.
So it's like...
Maybe it's because I've lived in a snow level my whole life, but I don't really like snow levels. In
Well,
games
no one
that
really
much.
likes snow levels, especially when the ice affects your movement.
Yes.
Well, it's not even that. It's just like the aesthetic of it is just not. I don't like it as much as
you.
say like other levels, like fire levels or something. I don't know.
I think you would probably like the banjo aesthetic. Probably, I mean, this is just me speaking, but I think I personally like the banjo aesthetic more because at least what they bring with Freeze Easy Peak, it's more of like a overall Christmas theme. There's a lot more
Yeah.
colors introduced to it because I sympathize with you in the fact that winter levels can be very, very boring in a lot of games because you're basically covering the main colors of the environment with a blanket of pure white,
Yeah.
which can be a very easy make level shitty button. But there's a lot of things you can do to get around that. Like, for example, add detailing on the snow to make it more visually interesting to look at. You can add in different, if you're going for a Christmas themed level, you can add in the multicolored lights. You can add in different kinds of symbology There's like the Christmas presents that you see piled up in one corner. You see the winter cabins that all have colored lighting coming from their windows. Shit like that are kind of just like visual breakups from the monotony of the snow.
Mm-hmm. Right.
With Click Clock Wood, it's not quite the same. It's not really a Christmas-themed level. It's more just kind of generally winter-themed. But the thing that I appreciate about Click Clock more than anything else is just that the winter level is such a stark contrast in comparison to all the others, because most of the enemies that are based on wildlife are either dead or in hiding.
Right.
Which I appreciate thematically. It makes it also a lot easier to climb the fucking tree because the birds are dead.
Mm-hmm. Cash out on fucking yellow feathers.
Mm-hmm.
Get paid.
Yeah, because all the Venus flytraps still have feathers with them.
I don't know what my favorite one is. That's a really hard question, actually.
Well, that's
Would it
be the croc mini
you
game?
have to go through the spinning blades.
That's a fun
I
one.
like that one a lot. I mean, I think Clanker's Cavern's a great level. It doesn't bother me very much at all.
Well, yeah, I think the genius behind Clanker's Cavern is very similar to the genius behind like Jolly Roger Bay, because the water in that level, it's essential to traversing to all the little nooks and crannies, but it's not like an underwater level in another 3D platformer where would be like a maze underwater.
Mm-hmm.
It's very straightforward that, okay, this path goes here, and then you go down, and then there's the key, and then you have to swim through it to wind it, and then you swim back up, and first off, you never have to go down there again unless you miss the Jinjo in the notes. But,
right.
Yeah, you're never really spending too much time in the water as much as you are on land. So it's more of, I guess, kind of treated as like a dual world mechanic, which I know is stretching it a lot. But it's basically like this level has two parts. It has the on-foot sections, and then it has the underwater sections. Mm-hmm. And they kind of balance each other out. Because I think in a water level, it can become kind of bad if one starts to outweigh the other.
Yeah.
Or if you introduce too many kind of environmental elements to the underwater environment, that it becomes...
Do you mean like oil in the water that drains your oxygen even when you're above the water?
I was going to get to that. But even in Rusty Bucket, like, the water isn't necessarily like... It's treated differently than it is in Clanker's Cavern. Because in Clanker's Cavern, it's like two halves of a coin. But in Rusty Bucket, being in the water is a punishment.
Yeah, you're
right. It's you fucked up jumping on this platform, now be in the water. And
right.
That's kind of a turning point in terms of the design, because you don't really see... You're kind of eased into that with Bubble Gloop at first, because they have the piranhas in the water, where if you fall into that, then it's, you get hurt, but you can get out of it pretty easily because there's usually platforms nearby. Plus, you can also be the crocodile and be immune to it. Then, when you go to Gobi's Valley, you don't have an animal to turn into to be immune to that. You have to rely on the swamp boots. But it's still treated as a punishment to fall into the hot sand. And that culminates into Rusty Bucket, where falling into the water isn't a direct punishment in terms of health. It's, you're on a timer, and if you're not out of here, then it's game over.
Well, also in the just sheer amount of time it takes to get back to whatever it is you were trying to do is miserable. But yeah, I don't think that level's that bad. Last time I played it, it was the XBLA version, which makes
I was about to say, you're lucky because you never had to play the 64 version.
You're right. But I definitely liked it more than Click Clock in the XBLA version, just because the tedium of that compared to the tedium of playing the level 4 times is it's no comparison.
Right. I mean, I would say Click Clock is also probably my least favorite in terms of the fact that it's basically the same level 4 times. If you're going for 100%, then it can be a fucking slog, but if you're just playing it casually, you can just kind of glance over a lot of those issues. Like, you can only you'd be like, oh, I'll just play the spring section and then I'll be done. I have enough jiggies to finish the game.
Yeah. How many?
So
you could probably, if you planned ahead, probably skip the entire world, right? I don't remember how many you need to finish.
You need close to almost all of them, I think. You need, I want to say like 85 or 90, I think.
Okay,
And the exact total is 100 or somewhere around there. You only need to get more jiggies if you just want the final health upgrade, which just doubles your health.
Which is like, can we talk about how that's like the sickest in-game upgrade? Because it like the game has been so good about giving you good amounts of things to use to your advantage throughout its entire length, that when you get to the end, they're able to just double your health bar, and it's not even like game breaking to do that.
Well, it's also a nice kind of return on investment, because if you've been seeking out the extra honeycomb pieces, then it exponentially increases your health a lot more. So
whereas
it can either
if it was
be
just like another 4 of them, it would be a lot less. God, it's so good. Everything, it's just the symmetry.
There's a lot of thought that was put into that. Whereas you go on to Banjo-Tooie,
which is like the least symmetrical thing imaginable, because it's just like random fucking strands of bullshit, tangents spinning off in every conceivable direction.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem with that, with Rare's upward climb of success, was that Tooie was that initial showing of that hubris of 3D platform design, which I think kind of expanded when they got to Donkey Kong. Well, Donkey Kong 64 to be specific, but because in Tooie, when you compare its level design to Kazooie, the levels are expanded upon, and there's a lot more stuff in them, but it doesn't feel very cohesive. And it feels like it's just kind of expanded upon for the sake of being expanded. Like Rare, during the 64 era, and even a little bit during the SNES era, was really trying to push the hardware. Like if you read up on a lot of the beta stuff for Dinosaur Planet, according to what they were saying in press releases, it was going to be the most technologically advanced N64 game at the time, which I could believe given off the footage and all the shit that they said was going to be in the game. So going from that, working backwards, you can see how that mindset evolved from when they were working on shit like Banjo-Tooie, GoldenEye, Donkey Kong 64, etc., etc.
It's probably kind of unfair, but like when I play Tooie, I get a little bit, like a little kernel of that feeling I get when I play like a modern Ubisoft game, and it's like, look at all this stuff on the map. Look at all these things. And it's just, it feels hollow, and I have to reconsider the meaning of existence, or lack thereof.
I feel like
time playing this fucking thing.
Soulless.
I guess.
It's like I'm playing with a toy, almost.
Yeah. I would say it's not, at least me personally, I would say I don't think it's that bad.
Because, I know.
In terms of the feeling, I think I understand that, but at least Tooie has enough variety in its environments and what you're doing that it can feel like a unique experience. The problem that I have is that there's just kind of a lot of padding in it. Like, you know how Egoraptor complained about waiting being a bad mechanic in Ocarina of Time, even though that's kind of a false, like, just not really a complaint. Yeah. I think the idea of that complaint, like the idea of something taking a lot longer than normal, is not inherently a bad idea. Mostly because I point at Tooie being a perfect example of that. Everything feels a lot more drawn out because it feels like they wanted to make the most out of the system. Like, for example, every time you use Mumbo to activate a Mumbo pad, you have to watch this fucking animation that you can't skip.
Well, and he walks so fucking slow. He's like tank controlling across the map. I mean, not literally, but like he's taken his sweet shaman time getting across the map, just
And
shuffling
really-
his little feet.
And really, the fact that you play as him at all, I think, is kind of a vestigial element in the end, because all you ever really do as him is activate those panels and then switch back. It's just another thing. It's another step in the process of you getting a Jiggy. Like when you play Kazooie, getting a Jiggy usually involves completing a series of tasks, but with each step in the task, it feels like you're getting closer and closer to that Jiggy, or at least it's always within sight. But in Tui, there's a lot of rigmarole added, where it's like, oh, well, you can't do this yet because you haven't gone to this level that's like 2 levels later, and hit this button that you can only access by going through this hole in the wall, and then you end up back in this previous level where you can hit the button that allows you to get this Jiggy that's in this level.
Man, I mean, honestly, I want to finish the game just so I have more thorough things to say about it. But like the bit that I did play was just like, we've got like an hour of cutscenes, not really, but like comparatively to the first one, we've got like so many cutscenes.
Yeah, there's a lot more.
The Jinjo village and shit, and it's like, I don't care. I'm sorry. And
Well, there's a lot more. Yeah, I feel like that kind of is an extension of them going up on the upward climb of just we want to add more shit to this game, so we're going to expand on every single element from the previous game because we clearly need to do that for some reason.
And then there's the thing where you pick up a
excuse
thing and it's 5 notes, and it's like, why not just have 1/5 as many notes in the level? It doesn't have to always be 100. Why? I understand that for eggs, because then you can have varying degrees of supplies, but why? What? It's not like these are harder to find than, okay, whatever.
The thing that I...
that
well, then there's also the
crazy
treble
with this
clefs,
pointless
too.
inflation of the collectible, which is like something Mario Odyssey does a lot, too, I feel like.
Yeah. And then there's also the treble clefs, which are like worth 50 notes. Admittedly, those are much rarer than the normal notes, obviously, but it still kind of serves the same problem that you were talking about. The thing that I hate with the pickups, though, is that the honeycombs, sometimes they'll drop, if you kill an enemy, they'll drop a honeycomb with like an exclamation mark on it, and it'll start this minigame where if you time it correctly, you'll get... Yeah, it basically just counts down from the bottom of your health to the top, and if you time it right, you can get a full heal, but if you time it wrong, then you get like 1 health, and it's just like... I don't understand why this is here. Why can't I just get health back?
Let's throw a tactical reload mechanic into Banjo-Tooie. Why not?
Yeah.
Isn't that the Gears of War thing where like you time it and then you get like...
There's a few games. There's a few games that do that, I think. I'm trying to think of one. I can't remember the name of it, but it's something like that where you don't really... I don't think you necessarily need that mechanic. Number one, because enemies respawn, which they didn't do in Kazooie.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of a more annoying aspect to it, but I suppose you would have to because the levels are so large and there are a lot of just kind of general hazards in them that there's no other replenishable sources of honeycombs. Because the the bee houses are still there, but they're consumable. Once you destroy them, they're gone.
Those stay gone, of course.
Yeah. There's actually they add in houses that actually run up and attack you. They're like almost mimics in a weird way, but they still drop 3 health.
That's almost a good sequel thing because you destroyed so many of them in the last game. They're mad at you now.
It would be good if they didn't introduce them like 3/4 of the way through.
Yeah, right.
Because everything else feels so fucking padded.
Not to interrupt, but when the fuck do we stop?
How about you quit playing your fucking... Let me see what bullshit
he's playing
right
Dolphin.
now I'm downloading Super Monkey Ball 2 because I realized I didn't have it and I really wanted it.
Damn.
I was playing Melee earlier.
Well, we're going to talk for 8 more hours about Banjo-Kazooie. And then I want to talk
have
about
like
how
20 gigabytes of audio files.
How
for
Dark
one
Souls
episode.
is almost perfectly paced for like 60 to 70% of its length.
And the only reason why it isn't is because of an unforeseeable natural disaster, which rushed the rest of the game's development.
Mm-hmm. That game's really good. Because, like, I was playing the randomizer, and the randomizer is fun. That game lends itself really well to it. But then then I was like, man, but, this game was already pretty much perfect, all right? Like, at least the first half of it. You don't really need to do anything to it. And you go back to vanilla, and you realize that, like, they thought of everything for a significant chunk of the game, and it's really...
You cannot say Dark Souls is a bad game. I don't think there's a bad game in the entire Dark Souls series, including 2.
I think that there are bad elements of every game.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that any of them are bad overall. I would say
Pros
that...
and cons. Yeah.
Well, I'd say Demons probably has the most cons when you compare the rest of them, I guess, depending on your opinion of 3 and 2... of their cons, whether or not you think they take more weight than Demons. I haven't played enough of 3.
I've literally only played DS1. Because whenever I think, I want to play Dark Souls, well, guess what? I start that one up. Tough shit. Deal with it. It's what happens.
From what I understand, everyone's complaints from 2 were primarily geared towards the level design, and the fact that the torch mechanic... The fact that the torch mechanic was never fully realized, which I think was just a development thing of just they never really actually realized the true darkness and like not the true darkness, but the lighting mechanics that they showed off couldn't be implemented in the game because it wouldn't run on console.
Yeah.
Which is just a sad pruning. And yeah, like what Ryan said, the enemy design was kind of, at least in terms of bosses, was just kind of boring because a lot of them ended up just being generic humanoids.
That and like a lot of people don't like how there's so many like mobs of enemies. Like there's a lot of big groups.
Yes.
Which can easily be fixed by not using the lock-on. But that's just another big complaint is that there's just so many enemies in one spot. I'm so overwhelmed.
Well, I think Dark Souls combat works best when it's low numbers, when it's you versus a target or versus a few other targets. When you introduce... Oh, my nose is getting stopped up. When you introduce more targets like that, you start to see the cracks of that design, which I think is what people were, emphasizing when they were talking about the mobs of enemies because, when you're swinging your sword around, you're usually only swinging it one direction. It's not like you can snap back and attack the guys behind you. It's not like a character action game.
Right.
Which I think is what they kind of did for 3, because at that point Bloodborne came out, and Bloodborne was more focused on more aggressive, offensive type of gameplay, which people really, really liked. Which does lend itself better to those kind of more mob-styled encounters. And that's kind of what they did for 3 as well, at least from playing a little bit of the game and watching some playthroughs of it as well. They kind of took more notes from Bloodborne's design than, than what Dark Souls 1 did for Demons, taking notes from that.
I feel like the blue tear stone ring is like an ironic item that you're not supposed to actually use very much, if at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because I understand that if you have like high vitality, it's worth more because I don't usually play with high vitality. So, but it's just like something about that fundamentally doesn't make sense to me. Only when you have low health you get increased defense. Only when you're like one hit away from death do you get slightly increased defense. And to me, it almost feels like they're trying to throw you off your guard so that when you get the red tear stone ring, you don't realize how good that item is. Because you're like, well, yeah, but it's only when you have no health. And it's like, well, yeah, but I mean, you can really fuck up bosses with this thing.
I think thematically it fits well. Because it kind of reminds me of the blue and red tunic system from Link's Awakening. Specifically the Game Boy Color version, because it wasn't in the original Game Boy version, because there was no color in that one. But in that one, once you beat... they added a new dungeon to the Game Boy Color remake, which was just, of course, called the fucking Color Dungeon. But once you once you beat it, you got your choice of 2 tunics. One doubled your offensive power, and one doubled your defensive power.
Oh, no contest.
Well, I mean, it's yeah, it's just
Just don't get hit.
The blue one was for defense, and the red one was for offensive. So I like to think personally it's kind of a callback to that. But red is typically a color that's associated with aggressiveness anyway, which can be associated with offense typically. So it could just be kind of that cornerstone. But also, I mean, you don't even necessarily even need the red tunic, because the red tunic only doubles your damage with the sword. Whereas in Link's Awakening, if you're using the sword by the time you have the boomerang, you're fucking up.
Okay, maybe you're right.
Because the boomerang...
I haven't played Zelda, so I don't fucking know.
I mean, you can still... The red tunic will still work really well if you're going to get like the level 3 sword. Because then you're doing basically times 6 damage, which does more damage than the boomerang, I think. But the boomerang does, I think, the same amount of damage as the Master Sword, and is the only weapon that can actually damage certain enemies. Not to mention, it works at a range, and you can, if you get close enough to someone, you can fire it more rapidly than you can swing your sword.
Yo, that sounds good.
Because it's basically, you shoot it out, it comes back, shoot it out, it comes back, which is a lot faster than the sword animation, which doesn't end when you collide with an enemy. You swing through them.
So have you ever tried that Link to the Past Metroid, Super Metroid combo randomizer, or is your hatred of Link to the Past too strong?
When did I say I hate Link to the Past?
Well, never.
I think it was because we were talking about Egoraptor and Ocarina of Time and all that.
You're skeptical of its placement in the Zelda fan halls.
Well, that's just because I was only skeptical of that one because Egoraptor, and a lot of people do this, put it on such a high pedestal because it's the one they grew up with.
Yeah.
And I say that, and I like Ocarina of Time, so I look at that game a little bit with rose-tinted glasses, but the core of my argument is that everyone has games like that they look back to fondly when they're kids, and they gloss over the issues because they enjoyed playing them when they were kids, and for no other reason do they do that, That's the problem, is when you're not looking over the issues because of they play into something else within the game, or they mechanically have a purpose, like, let's say, the bad combat mechanics in Silent Hill, where it's actually a factor of the gameplay and it's intentionally made to be not good, but you're just looking...
Well, yeah, go ahead.
But if you're just looking at it, only because you associate it with those good times, which I personally felt like that's what Egoraptor was doing with Link to the Past, because he was saying that the puzzles were better in Link to the Past, but yet at the same time, like, what were puzzles in Link to the Past? Use an item here, hit a button, kill all the enemies in the room to get a key, break a pot to get a key. Use your gun,
open inventory,
or things like that. When in reality, like, most, if not all of those, still exist in Ocarina of Time, except for the whole breaking a pot to get a key thing, which I think is way better, because in Link to the Past that basically means, well, I have to break every pot now because it's possible there could be a key in it.
Yeah.
Like, that's something that, of course, he didn't bring up during his video, that all small keys were relegated to chests now. Because now that means, I don't have to go out of my way to break every single fucking pot. Yeah, it's just... It's not that I don't like Link to the Past specifically. It's just more that, the whole rose-tinted glasses thing. That's the only issue that I have.
Yeah,
I mean, as a game, I think it's fine. Yeah, it's just... It's just a major game changer for Zelda, which is another reason why people look upon it very fondly, because it was a shift back to the 2D style, well, the top-down style from Zelda 2, which people didn't like at the time, and some people still don't like, but I've seen a lot of people kind of come out of the woodwork saying, well, actually, I liked it back in the day, but part of me thinks that that's just because they're trying to earn nerd cred. I mean, I'm going to say right now that is a baseless assumption. I have no proof for any of that, but
Sure.
it feels like that with some people. I don't know. That they're just trying to be contrarian.
Look, I don't have any Nostalgia Goggles games. We all know Sly 1 can be empirically proven to be the best.
To be better than any other video game ever.
Yeah.
That's probably my biggest
no
one.
other game comes close to a 1998 fucking...
1998,
Not even
huh?
close.
1998, yeah.
Not even close.
Because, like, Ratchet and Clank
1994.
actually does cool
Yeah,
stuff.
1994.
Sly 1 is kind of just...
Oh,
Crash
I thought we were
Bandicoot.
still talking about Ocarina.
No, we said Sly Cooper. Well,
I mean,
Sly Cooper in the
Sly 1 is
Ocarina of
kind just
Time,
Crash Bandicoot with a cool new cast of characters.
and with more of a plot and things happening.
So it's like it's hard. It's kind of hard to make a case for Sly 1 as much as I like it. So that's probably my biggest one. But
I don't know.
Also, I don't think Silent Hill Combat was intentionally bad. I just think it worked better than if it was good. Like that's how it happened. But if they had made it good, it would have lost something in that process.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying that they intentionally. I wasn't there during the process, so I don't know what their true intentions were. But I think what their thought was that, they were thinking about the character first. Who's this guy, Harry Mason? He's not like, he's never really used weapons before. So how would he swing this baseball bat? How would he shoot this gun? And I think that for a lot of the good Silent Hills, that's what they went for, was how would this character do this thing? Whereas with other...
what are you taking shots at there? What are you
For other not as good Silent Hills, they might use the context of just having a character be in the military more of as a plot convenience for him to be able to do stupid shit. And other things that don't make any sense, like a combat role, like what... I'll admit, I've never been in
roll
basic...
around your personal demons.
Well, I'll admit, I've never been to a basic training military program, nor do I know what the regiment typically is, but I don't think they teach you how to fucking, like, combat roll around a target and stab them in the throat. That doesn't make sense.
No, they do. It's they put you up against the asylum demon. And they give you the sword hilt. And they make sure you didn't bring any firebombs with you. And then you just sort of... You gotta just chip away at them.
What do they give you? Do they give you the pendant?
Ass.
Do they give you the pendant when you're in the Marines?
That's the starting gift.
Yeah.
For the Marine. Yeah.
Instead of a pendant, it's actually just a pin.
No, they give you the Tiny Beings ring because that's the most health they could mass produce for the entire military, is the Tiny Beings ring.
Right.
That's the useless ring. You want to talk about a useless fucking ring, Tiny Being. I don't even know if there's an attack in the game that does little enough damage that it wouldn't just immediately eradicate your bonus from the Tiny Beings ring.
Yeah. I don't even know what the Tiny Being is.
This is a good podcast.
It is. I think we're ready to end. It's been like an hour and 37 minutes.
I guess so.
Yeah. This
All right, bye.
session of Tony Hawk's Underground isn't going too well anyway.
Well, you're playing Thug?
That's what I've been playing the past 20 minutes.
I thought you were downloading something else. What were you downloading?
Well, I am. I'm downloading
Super
Super Monkey Ball 2. It's just taking a while.
And then you were playing Melee, and now you're playing this?
Yep.
All right.
having
Well,
fun.
I'm gonna end the recording.
Well, it didn't have the characters I was good at, like Jigglypuff. It didn't have Jigglypuff, so I didn't want to go through the effort of unlocking it. I could. But Alright, well, this has been fun. Goodbye, everyone. Watch It Comes at Night, I guess. If you want. And stop.